This is a short one, and comes from a friend who had the opportunity to meet Gygax and ask him the proper way to pronounce drow, hint, rhymes with L. He had been working with a guy that he would chat with frequently and hit it off with. He told the guy about D&D, and the guy expressed interest and said he knew others interested. My friend set up a time with him to meet up at his place and run it there. No red flags. Super nice guy. When the door opened and the guy welcomed him in, he was welcomed to a wallpaper of Playboy covers stapled to the wall from floor to ceiling. Super bachelor pad. But then there was also a massive, swastika-bearing red flag in all its Third Reich glory hanging over his bed. Holy shit. As the cherry on top, no one else was there. Just this suddenly terrifying guy and my friend with his bag full of D&D. From 0 red flags to several, including a goddamn literal one in 0.01 seconds. Record breaking. Oh. Hey. I forgot. I have somewhere I gotta be. We'll have to reschedule. Never set foot in the door, never spoke to the guy beyond pleasantries again. What the hell would have happened? Super nice guy, though. I have a horror story that happened recently I wanted to share. A few weeks ago, I had a boyfriend and his girlfriend walk out of an urban fantasy campaign I was running because, I shit you not, the boyfriend was a furry. Let me explain. Now, I personally don't care about that. I've had furry players before, and usually it doesn't bother me as long as it doesn't spoil everyone else's fun. In fact, we actually had 2 furries among our 8 players. The boyfriend and a moon druid, and the moon druid was there for the whole campaign with no issues. But the characters went to a fancy gala being run by some werewolves. Boyfriend's character went into the fancy gala dressed up in a wolf fursuit. Everyone else, including the moon druid, were in a smoking jacket, 3-piece suit, rental tux, a red satin dress, an emerald green dress spun out of light, a busboy uniform, and a blue dress with a white sweater. And this guy decided to have his character wear a brightly colored red and brown fursuit. To an art gala. The werewolf leader asked him if boyfriend was attempting to make some sort of joke. Boyfriend responded that he was perfectly legitimate, no joking. The werewolf leader asked him to change. Boyfriend said no. Werewolf leader told boyfriend he has 2 options, dueling him, or being made a part of the pact. I'll note, I thought I was doing boyfriend a favor by offering him this option. Boyfriend declares that he wouldn't be caught dead as a beta. He was the alpha of his life and would submit to nobody, and he would duel werewolf leader. Werewolf leader rips boyfriend to shreds within a few rounds, because the party is level 3. Werewolf leader was a CR of around 10. He was going to be a late game boss, and was immune to most damage due to a deal with a demon. Boyfriend called a timeout and said I was doing a bad job as a DM because I killed his character. I had told everyone in session 0 this was a campaign with consequences, so fucking around while in danger isn't a super smart idea. He and the girlfriend argued that I should have allowed him to kill the werewolf leader and become master of the pact. The pact they already knew ran a mafia up and down the entire West Coast. A few weeks ago, I had a boyfriend and his girlfriend walk out of an urban fantasy campaign I was running because, I shit you not, the boyfriend was a furry. Let me explain. Now, I personally don't usually care about someone being a furry. I've had furry players before, and usually it doesn't bother me as long as it doesn't spoil everyone else's fun. In fact, we actually had 2 furries among my 8 players at the time. Boyfriend and a moon druid, and the moon druid was there for the whole campaign. But the characters went to a fancy gala being run by some werewolves. Boyfriend's character went into the fancy gala dressed up in a wolf fursuit. Everyone else, including the moon druid, were in a smoking jacket, 3-piece suit, rental tux, a red satin dress, an emerald green dress spun out of light, a busboy uniform, and a blue dress with a white sweater. And this guy decided to have his character wear a brightly colored red and brown fursuit. to an art gala. The werewolf leader asked him if boyfriend was attempting to make some sort of joke. Boyfriend responded that he was perfectly legitimate, no joking. The werewolf leader asked him to change. Boyfriend said no. Werewolf leader told boyfriend he has two options, dueling him, or being made a part of the pact. I'll note, I thought I was doing boyfriend a favor by offering him this option. Boyfriend declares that he wouldn't be caught dead as a beta. He was the alpha of his life and would submit to nobody, and he would duel werewolf leader. Werewolf leader rips boyfriend to shreds within a few rounds, because the party is level 3. Werewolf leader was a CR of around 10. He was going to be a late game boss, and was immune to most damage due to a deal with a demon. Boyfriend called a timeout and said I was doing a bad job as a DM because I killed his character. I had told everyone in session 0 this was a campaign with consequences, so fucking around while in danger isn't a super smart idea. He and the girlfriend argued that I should have allowed him to kill the werewolf leader and become master of the pact. The pact they already knew ran a mafia up and down the entire West Coast. So, I'm an incredibly talkative guy, extremely talkative. My D.M, who I'll call Gerald for the story, didn't like that. Gerald was incredibly rude to me, told me to stop trying to be the center of attention, even on my turn. For you see, I tend to ask questions. This was the very beginning of a Tomb of Annihilation campaign. I was playing a half-elf warlock. Long story short, her and a barbarian got drunk. She was a bumbling idiot whilst the barbarian started a bar fight. Gerald used this chance to try and execute my character and claimed he rolled percentile. LVE just quit that campaign and joined someone else's. I'm a fairly green GM. I put together a group to play Pathfinder. A friend of mine brought a friend of hers that I had never met before. We'll call him Nick, not his real name. Nick is a bit of an odd duck and, I think, used to being a bit of an outcast. I know, super unusual for an RPG player. But he's odd in ways that I enjoy and relate to. He came into our first session with a very well-formed character. His character is also an odd duck in a very sincere, naive way. Nick dove right into some great role play with me and the other players. He basically set the tone right off the bat for what's become my favorite group. Nick is also extremely affable and friendly. He's funny, brings food to the group, always has a great attitude. A great player. There's a mean edge to my sense of humor. With the right group of close friends, there's a constant volley of verbal barbs, underhanded attacks, and personal slams. All in good fun, of course. I'm careful with this side of my nature as I know it's not for everyone and I don't like to hurt people's feelings for real. I messed up with Nick. I think I let the connection we seemed to have during the role-playing convince me that we had reached a level of friendship and trust we hadn't actually established. So I started in on some of my jokes, and I didn't notice that I was legitimately hurting his feelings. After a couple of sessions, he said something about how he felt like he was being picked on, but at first I thought he was playing along like some of my friends would do, so I didn't take it seriously. The next time, though, it was clear he was serious. This was right at the end of the session. I felt like crap. The next day, I messaged and apologized. We had a good discussion. Turns out, he legitimately thought I didn't like his character or him as a person. I let him know this wasn't the case at all, and explained how my friends and I tend to joke with each other. I let him know I appreciated his contributions to the game and was having a great time with his role play. We're all cool now. I've toned it down in session. I talked to the other players as well who said they didn't feel I was too mean, and were a bit surprised by Nick's reaction, but could see where he was coming from. Anyway, lesson learned. Okay, this is a very quick one about a player I had to kick out of my group during character creation. I am running a very grim and serious campaign, with a fair amount of intrigue and political maneuvering. Playing 5e, and I only really have one house rule for my setting, where I do not allow the Dragonborn race in my campaign. It has valid reasons in my homebrew world, where dragons are revered as gods, and a half-dragon creature would be viewed as an abomination by certain religions, etc. etc. No need to go into that here. So this new guy gets invited to the game by a friend of a friend, and I make sure that he knows about my no Dragonborn rule before he even arrives. He shows up with a character sheet. It looks mechanically sound, it's not a Dragonborn, but it's missing any information about personality traits, bonds, flaws, and whatnot. And it's also missing a name. I tell him, that's fine, just give him a name and we can start playing. I go through the introduction process, and ask the guy to introduce his character. He says he is a human bard, named Richard Jair. Richard Jair. I say. You mean like the movie star, Richard Jair? Yes, he says, and then proceeds to try and do an impersonation of Richard Jair's voice. It must be from a movie I haven't seen, because I don't recognize it at all. Or, more likely, he's just doing a terrible impersonation. The guy seems to find this hilarious, by the way, but nobody else at the table does. So I politely ask, okay, can you please change this character's name? It doesn't really fit with the tone I'm going for in this campaign. We're skulking around in the shadows, solving mysteries, and turning factions against each other. I don't really want to have a pop culture gag ruining the atmosphere. No. He says. No. I reply. And then, here is the kicker. Probably the most baffling thing I've ever had a player say to me. He says, and I quote, "You only get one." It took a while for me to work out what he actually meant by this, but it turns out that he believed my no Dragonborn stipulation was the only ruling I was entitled to make regarding the creation of his character. He meant that I only get one decision, as a GM. He was dead serious too. After I came to understand exactly what he meant, I told him he could either change the name to something less silly, or he could choose to leave. So he left. This happened a good while ago, but was one of the experiences that drove me to take up DMing myself with the mindset that surely tabletop shouldn't be this terrible. So I was around 19 at the time and had just joined the tabletop gaming society at my university, looking to dip my toe into some tabletop RPGs and see what the fuss was about. I was directed to a Call of Cthulhu campaign that was just starting up, ran by a guy who liked the game so much that even his nickname was Cthulhu. Good sign. So I sit down and roll up an elderly, alcoholic priest who's doubting his faith and trying to find some evidence of God. The idea I had was that his search for true faith would lead him into discovering Lovecraftian horrors. Basic stuff. There were about 5 of us, but the rest of the group are unimportant. The DM starts us out on a boat heading to an island to investigate discoveries of new religious artifacts that have been uncovered there. The boat arrives and our group heads into the island to see what we find. Shortly, we come across your stereotypical group of cultists gathered in a circle around a strange artifact, chanting the typical Cthulhu stuff while the head cultist read from an ominous book. I asked if I could sneak a little bit closer to get a look at the book or the artifact. The DM smiles and responds, "Go ahead, I dare you." Ominous, but I do it anyway and roll for stealth. I succeed the check. The DM is not happy. The DM angrily explains that I get closer to the group and I can see, and I quote, all of the DM's notes written down for the campaign because I had to ruin everything. Before I can get an explanation, he shouts that all the cultists instantly see me and the rest of the party and they pull out guns. We have no idea how to fight and they seem pretty mean, so we run for the boat. One of our party members gets shot on the way back and instantly dies. We arrive at the boat and start to set sail when the DM interrupts us to say, "Something is moving on the horizon." Wait, why is the horizon itself moving? And is that tentacles? Cthulhu himself arrives and kills you all. He then closes his book and tells us that's the end of the campaign. The weirdest part was that he seemed genuinely interested in what we thought of the campaign and was surprised that we all seemed confused and upset at what had happened. So this is more of a potential story in the making. Figure you guys might be able to help me deal with this. The situation is as follows: Guy and I used to be friends. He glommed hardcore onto my boyfriend and our friend group. He was extremely jealous of me, despite the fact that he was born with a silver spoon and then some, and resented my relationship with my boyfriend. He was an original member of our friend group's D&D party along with my boyfriend. I didn't have free time during this period. He screwed himself out of a visa, long story, and moved out of the country. I replaced him in the party once my schedule cleared up. He's coming to visit on vacation in November and wants to join in on one of our sessions. To elaborate a little further, the dude's got serious nice guy syndrome and hates being told no or criticized. As such, whenever I'd either try to bring up a more realistic perspective in conversation to counter his super spoiled ones or even just playfully chide him, he'd have a temper tantrum and eventually just started giving me the silent treatment even in the middle of group hangouts. The DMs also lamented to me that he would have temper tantrums at the table if the social/role-playing phase of our sessions would last too long for his liking. Meanwhile, that's the part the rest of us enjoy more than the combat. He just likes rolling dice. His characters also extremely lazily written and force the DM to do a handful of retcons with his world building, and even when the DM placed limitations on certain aspects of his backstory/race choice to better fit the world, he just flat out ignored the DM and would try to insist otherwise to the table. But somehow, despite all this, the DM and our third player are still willing to indulge him, whereas my boyfriend and I are kind of dreading the upcoming session but don't want to be the sticks in the mud either.